Hi everyone, Angie here. We have about a minute and a half before we begin some yoga. We're going to have kind of a medium practice. It's not going to be super gentle, but it's not going to be super vigorous either. And no matter if you are a beginner or if you've been practicing for a while, there's going to be something for everybody to practice tonight. So, hey Mary, good to see you. So hopefully some more folks can start joining in. I'm going to start at 6 on the dot. Let's see, as far as props go, if you think you might need a block, everybody just go ahead and grab a block if you have it. I'll just put it that way, and grab a strap if you have it. And come on back to your mat and we will get started. Hey Marco, good to see you. All right, so I'm going to grab my strap and my block. And I'm joining you from indoors today. Couldn't be outside because of the rain, so hopefully everybody can see me okay. All right, it is 6 o'clock, you guys, so we are going to get started. Hey Stacy, and find a comfortable sitting position for yourself. Here's where that block may come in handy, because you can sit on the edge of the block. And even if you are able to sit on the ground with relative ease, I highly recommend using the block just to give yourself that extra bit of space in the lower back and the hips. Hey Cindy. All right, so thanks you guys for joining me. Let's get started. We're going to bring the palms of the hands at the heart center. Relax the shoulders, unclench the jaw, tuck your chin slightly. And let's just get grounded in this practice. Namaste. So, as you work your way into finding your seat, then maybe start to invite yourself inward. Maybe that means closing the eyes. Maybe you keep your eyes open, but just send your gaze down the tip of the nose toward the ground out in front of you. Either way, softening through the eyes deeply. Allowing that softening to move throughout the entire face. And then just sending that relaxation into the rest of the physical body. So again, your shoulders are relaxed. They're rolled open, sliding down the back body. The neck is nice and long. There's movement there, no rigidity. You can kind of wiggle around a little bit to make sure. And we have this nice lift through the sternum, and that's just going to help keep those shoulders rolled open. Breathing here, getting connected with your rhythm of breath as best you can. Noticing what parts of the body move with each breath cycle. You have a lot of movement in your chest area. If so, if you notice the chest really lifting as you inhale and then really sinking as you exhale, see if you can try to keep your chest somewhat level while you inhale and exhale, but instead let that navel gently press away from the spine as you inhale, and then draw back inward and slightly upward as you exhale. Just sort of moving the breath in that way, moving that part of the body with the breath in that way. And it helps to slow things down a little bit. This belly breathing is a really grounding way of breathing. So just taking this time to prepare ourselves really for this practice, not only in the physical body, but mentally preparing ourselves. Big breath in. As the breath flows out, you can start to blink the eyes open if they were closed, bringing your gaze back to neutral. And then we're going to come on to the hands and the knees. So really take your time making this transition to the hands and the knees. Because from here, we're going to come into child's pose. And so I like to take a wide-kneed child's pose, but you might like to keep your knees together, hip width, and that's fine either way. Just see what works best for you. Take a big breath in. As the breath flows out, we're just going to fold. And so, you might be stacking your fists here, okay? Resting the forehead that way. Or maybe you're stacking the hands. The forehead may rest on the ground as well. Just see what works best for you. If you have hypertension issues, you're going to want to have a little bit of height for your head. So you're going to have the fists stacked probably. Or you could have your forehead resting on a block here. That would be fine too. And we're just going to take this child's pose, Balasana, to see if an intention comes up for this practice. See what that might be. In these times, especially when we're not getting to see our friends and family as much, you might even maybe dedicate this practice to a loved one that maybe you'd like to see more and that you wish well. Just a few more breaths here. And then slowly start to make your way back to the hands and the knees. Now, we're going to take the knees right underneath the hips, though, if you did have them spread out wide. We're just going to come into our Chakravarkasana pulses. So remember with these, the heels of the hands are going to be right underneath the shoulders. Knees are underneath your hips, and you're really pressing through the fingers and the thumb pads in order to kind of protect your wrists. So inhale and extend through your spine, reaching long out through the base, and then long through the crown of the head, and slightly lifting the crown, slightly lifting the sits bones, and then exhale, really curling inward as you press through the hands, the knees, the tops of the feet, tucking your chin. And do that several more times. Inhale, dog tilt. And so rather than thinking about lifting the crown of the head and the sits bones up, think about getting as long as you can. Exhale, cat. 3 more. This is a nice time to start engaging that yoga breath, that ujjayi breath, where you can, hear yourself breathing. That breath gives us the focus, the presence, and the energy to move through this entire practice. Last one here. And then coming back to the hands and the knees. Now, transitioning. I'm going to come into a cross-legged positioning. Now, you can sit on the edge of your block if you'd like here, or just sit on the ground. Bear with me as I get our camera right. And we're just going to stretch the neck a little bit. So big breath in, and as the breath flows out, tuck your chin toward your chest. Inhale, roll your head toward your right side. Exhale, tuck your chin. Inhale, left. And just keep going back and forth with the breath. Every time you exhale, you're coming center. Every time you inhale, you're visiting one side or the other. Wherever you are, let's visit each side once more. And especially as your chin tucks, we're just keeping that chest lifted so we're not rounding through the spine. Last visit to the side. And then inhale and lift your head back to a neutral positioning. So change the crossing of your legs here. Whatever leg is in front, switch that out now. And then we're just going to roll the shoulders back a few times. Just kind of easing our way into this practice tonight. And forward a few times. I see Serena's joined us. Hey, Serena. And relax. All right, so we're going to come back to the hands and the knees. Tonight's session, we're going to be doing quite a bit of pulses that are actually, I guess, inspired by the 5 Tibetans. And so we're going to be doing, a really more gentle version of the 5 Tibetans. And that's going to help us move into and deeper, move into various poses and deeper into poses. So hands and knees. And then from here, we're just going to circle through the hips. So, pressing through the fingers, pressing through the thumb pads. Again, making sure we're not dumping down into the wrists. And then switching the direction of those circles. Good. Reach back into child's pose here. Maybe bring that intention that you set back to mind. And slowly start to lift your way back up to hands and knees. We're going to come to standing knees. So coming on to standing knees, you may or may not want to have an extra blanket here to go under your knees. That'll be up to you. But we're going to start by stepping the right foot forward in our low lunge here. And so hands are going to come down to the ground. We have the back knee on the ground, that's what's making it our low lunge. Now here, if you needed to, you could have a block under the hands. If you need a little extra, height, maybe even have the blocks tall, and that's fine too. Okay, we're just trying to kind of wake up through, the hamstrings and the quads, and the legs, so we can be ready for our practice. So big breath in. As the breath flows out, we're just going to walk the hands back a little bit as we bring this right leg toward extension. Toward being the word. If your leg is extended here, and it doesn't have to be, it could be bent, okay? If it is extended, making sure we're not locking that knee. We want to keep that micro bend in the knee at all times. One more breath here. And then slowly coming back into your lunge. You can place your left hand either on a block or on the mat as we twist toward this right side. So we have the right hand resting on the thigh. Some of us are going to stay here. If it felt okay, then you could reach that arm straight up. Palm would be open toward this right side. Then that's your next option. Whatever you're doing, making sure you're not dumping down into your left shoulder, but really pressing into the ground, lifting up and out of the shoulder. You have the option of intensifying this, curling the toes under, lifting the back knee if you'd like. Maybe even looking up beyond the fingertips of that lifted right hand. Take a big breath in wherever you are. Exhale and slowly start to lower that back knee if it was lifted. Both hands come back to the ground. We drag that right foot back. Press back, push the reset button as we come into child's pose. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Have your head resting. And 1 more breath. And then slowly pressing back. Hands in the knees, standing knees. And then we're going to step that left foot forward. So have your hands down for your low lunge. Remember, you might have your hands on blocks. And see how much higher that brings me when I do that? And so, if you need those blocks, you can have them tall, you can have them on the side. You want to make your yoga practice attainable and pleasant enough, enjoyable enough to where you want to come back to it again and again. And so there's no shame in using these props. That's what they're here for, to help us. Big breath in. As the breath goes out, we're going to start to walk the hands back just a little bit. This is like a half pyramid because we have the back knee down on the ground, bringing that left leg this time toward extension without locking the knee. And that micro bend. If you've ever done any online yoga with Jason Crandall, he is the one that talks about that micro bend in the knee the most out of anybody that I follow. Just a great teacher. All right, so here we go, coming back into our low lunge. Now here I'm going to demonstrate what it would look like with the hand on the block. I just have the right hand on the block. It's still underneath my shoulder. And I'm going to turn my back to you guys. You can see kind of the other angle of this. I just twist toward my left side now. And notice when I was talking about dumping down in the shoulder, that's what this would look like. Dumping down into the shoulder, kind of slumping down. Instead, I'm going to press firmly through my hand. And then see all that space I've created now in the shoulder, away from the ear. Now, I could intensify this a little bit by lifting that back knee, or maybe lifting this left arm. Palm would be open towards the left side of the room if I were going to take it to that next level. Take a big breath in. Exhale, lower the knee if it was lifted. Lower the arm if it was lifted. And then slowly start dragging that left foot back. Again, press that reset button in child's pose. One more breath. And then hands and knees, curling your toes under. We're going to send the hips up. Downward facing dog first. Down dog. Big breath in. Now, I know some of you guys might have some, issues with the wrists, and so you could always have your forearms down onto the mat and pressing into dolphin instead. That would be your modification. An even gentler modification is either, half dolphin or just being up on the hands and knees. That's up to you, okay? I see where Pat's joining us. Hey, Pat. All right, so big breath in wherever you are. And as the breath flows out, let's go ahead and lower the knees down to the mat. All right, so again, pressing up, downward facing dog. Now, if you have to be on your hands and knees here, we are going to work our way to standing forward fold, Uttanasana, okay? And so for those of you in down dog, start walking your feet up toward the top of the mat until you end up in that forward fold. If you're on your hands and knees or you're on your forearms, you're going to come to standing knees. Step one foot forward, and then the other to the top of the mat, and then come into your fold, okay? So whichever one works best for you. Everybody meets up though in that forward fold. Everybody meets up there. I'm just going to scoot the camera back a little bit. Good. So from our forward fold, we're going to come up part way, flatten the back. Inhale, pull the navel in. Exhale, folding over the legs. Your knees might be bent as you do this, okay? If you feel any tenderness, pain to the lower back, keep your knees bent, all right? Again, inhale, coming up partway, flat back. If my knees are bent, it's going to look like this. See, my knees are bent. I'm still pressing against the shins. I'm still really bracing through my core. And then I exhale. And keep that extension I've developed and just hold one more time. Inhale. Flat back, pull that navel in. Exhale. Into your fold. Cross your arms if you can. Let your head hang. Let your upper body spill over the legs. Staying there for just a few more breaths. When you're ready, slowly making your way back upright. Okay, we're not going to do a whole lot standing, just a little bit tonight, but most of our work will be on the ground. But we're going to do one of those 5 Tibetans, one of the more gentle versions. So, with the first Tibetan, we are spinning. We kind of pivot on one foot. And so here, feel free, if you want to, do that full spin and pivot that way, you can. You can do that full Tibetan. We're only going to do 7 repetitions though, okay? And then we'll see what kind of time we have if we can do 7 more of another round. So the more gentle version though is we have our feet hip width apart, and instead of spinning around completely, we're just going to sort of do this more static spin, if there is such a thing. So I guess the stasis is that my feet are not moving, my upper body is. And I'm sort of purposefully patting with one hand in front, the lower abdominal, the side lower abdominal, and then with the hand in the back, I'm kind of patting one of the kidneys. I'm just moving back and forth. All right, so here we go. Maybe just a few more. We'll equal 7 to each side, so it'd be 14 in total. And then coming back to center. Pausing for just a second. Checking in. And then coming back to the top of your mat. So hands are at your chest. Inhale. Reaching out and up. Exhale, folding over the legs. Inhale up partway, flatten the back, pull that navel in. Exhale and fold, hands to the mat. We're going to step back, plank pose. Big breath in as the breath goes out. Lower the knees, hug the elbows in, lower all the way down to the belly. Inhale, roll the shoulders, lift up baby cobra. Exhale and lower. Inhale, hands and knees. Curl your toes. Remember, instead of down dog, you could be putting those forearms down right now, getting ready for dolphin. And then coming into that down dog or dolphin or hands and knees. Everybody has something they can be practicing here. And then just nod the head gently, yes. Shake the head gently, no. Walk, step, or hop your feet. The top of your mat, coming up part way, flat back, inhale. Exhale. And fold. Now, from here, we're going to bend the knees and drop those hips down, okay? And so the heels are probably going to be lifting off of the ground, and that's okay. We're not going to be here for very long. So from here, see if you can kind of help yourself very gracefully lower down into reclined position, because this is our second Tibetan. Now, as you guys know, or many of y'all know, that second Tibetan typically looks like this. We would inhale and be sort of resting, and then as we exhaled, we'd be lifting the legs and lifting the upper body, and then lowering everything back down. Okay, so again, you are free to practice that version if you'd like. Scoot this back just a little bit more. Or you can follow along with me, and we're going to do a little more gentle version of that. All right. Again, only 7 repetitions. That's better. Okay, so remember, you can have the legs extended like I just demoed and do those 7, or we would inhale and have the knees bent and be resting, and as we exhale, we would just lift those bent knees up, maybe lift the upper body up if we could, or it might just be lifting the knees tonight, and then inhale, lowering back down. Okay, so we're going to be doing 7 repetitions. I'm just going to demo the gentle version, okay? And then you guys that want to go for it, remember that more intense version, we inhale, extend, and we exhale and lift. And then inhale and extend back down. All right? So everybody else bending the knees, inhale. And as we exhale, pulling that navel in, lifting up with control. Inhale, lowering down, tap the toes. Exhale. Coming up. Good. 5 more, inhale. And then exhale, lift. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. And 2 more. Last one. And then lower back down. Now you have 2 options here. You can either roll onto your right side and come back to the hands and the knees, okay? Or you can rock your way up like that. Lift up on to a sitting position briefly, and then come to your hands and knees. All right, so see again which works best for you. Now from here, curling the toes, sending the hips up into downward facing dog. Just briefly, your elbows and forearms might be on the ground here. Let the spine extend. Take 1 more breath. And then lower the knees. So for this one, we're going to come into our 3rd Tibetan. The knees, we're on standing knees, and the knees are hip width apart. And here's where you may or may not need extra cushioning underneath your knees. So you might fold up a blanket, or maybe set down another yoga mat, because we will be on standing knees. I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing with my hands. I'm just basically having the fingers facing downward, the lower part of my back. And then I could either have the tops of the feet resting on the ground here, or I could have the toes curled under. This is really similar to camel pose, Ustrasana. It's just basically, camel pose pulses here. All right, so I want you to notice that my hips are positioned right over my knees. And as I move into the back bend, I want to be pressing the hips forward to try to keep the hips in alignment, okay? So that at no point are my hips coming back here, okay? So just keeping that in mind, protecting your lower back, hands are on that lower back. Now as we begin, we're going to tuck the chin. And even though my chin is tucked, I'm not rounding through the spine. I'm still lifting through the sternum. Now here I'm just going to inhale, start lifting my chin, looking up, and then I'm actually going to press my hips forward into this little back bend. And then as I exhale, I tuck the chin, I come back upright. That's one. Okay? So we're going to do that together. The more advanced version, you guys would just put your hands under your glutes, basically. And then when you came into, your back bend from there, it would be a bigger back bend, really pressing the hips forward. But again, we're just going to stay with that more gentle version unless you want to go more intense. Okay, so 7 of these. Hands in whatever positioning. Inhale, press forward into your cat tilt as you move into that back bend. Exhale, tucking your chin towards your chest. Keep that going. Inhale, pressing forward. Exhale. This is one where it's really easy to kind of start thinking about rushing through, because it does take a minute. Can't really rush through it. We're going to just take our time, be patient. This is the 4th one. So we're more than halfway there. And then 3 more. Keep it going. 2 more. And very last one. Tucking the chin. Now from here, we're just going to come on to the hands and the knees. We're going to curl the toes under, send the hips up, downward facing dog. Remember, you guys, some of y'all might be right here, hands and knees. Some of you might be here on the forearms and knees, or you might be here on your forearms and feet, just so that all of us have something that we can be practicing right now. Pull that navel in, take a big breath. And release the knees back down. Come into a sitting position. I'm going to talk to us just a little bit about the next one that we're going to do, the 4th Tibetan. Okay, so typically the 4th Tibetan is, I'll pull my blanket out of the way and show you guys. Typically the 4th Tibetan asks an awful lot of the wrists. And so if you have wrist issues, even kind of the modified version of that 4th Tibetan is a good bit of weight on the hands and on those wrists. And so we're going to do a version tonight that's basically just a bridge pulse instead, okay? But if you are wanting to go full out, okay, and maybe you've practiced the Tibetans before, the 5 Tibetans before, then remember this one is where we sit in Dandasana, our staff pose, and it helps to have a slippery floor because then you can slide the hips back and forth, your glutes back and forth on the floor. I'm on carpet, so it might not look as graceful. But the hands are right here by the hips. The fingers are facing forward. I'm going to keep my heels essentially right where they are. I'm just going to kind of move onto the soles of my feet. Keep the hands right where they are and just move the hips. So I start with the chin tucked. This is the more advanced version though, okay? And then I would inhale, come onto the soles of the feet, lift the hips in this sort of upward facing plank. And then as I exhaled, slide the hips back in between the hands and tuck the chin, okay? So that's the more advanced version, kind of that conventional version. And like I said, feel free. I know a lot of you guys practice the 5 Tibetans. I'm gonna bring it just a little bit closer though to show you guys the bridge pulse that we're going to be doing instead tonight. Okay? So for our bridge pulse, it's just going to be simply take your block, okay, and you're going to position it in between your feet like that, in between the inner edges of the feet like that. Place the block down onto the ground, and we're going to squeeze the inner edges of the feet together in an effort to keep the knees from splaying out to the sides, because as soon as we start to lift the hips, that's often what happens, that splay of our knees. So we're going to pulse up 7 times, all right? So here we go. Keep your head to center, palms are down on the ground beside you. Now you also have the option of lifting the arms over the head, if that's okay with the shoulders, letting the tops of the hands rest on the ground. So see what works best for you. And then inhale, press the hips upward, squeezing the inner edges of the feet in toward one another, squeezing that block, keeping the knees to center, and then exhale and lower. Now the knees are not going to be together. They're going to be hip width apart. Inhale, back up for 2. You can feel the weight kind of transferring into the shoulders a bit. Exhale and lower. Inhale up for 3. Broaden the shoulders so that they're better able to relax as they take more weight of the body. And lower back down as you exhale. Inhale for 4. Exhale, lower back down. Good. 3 more. Inhale for 5. Exhale, lower. Inhale for 6. Exhale, lower. Last one. Inhale for 7. Exhale and lower back down. Good. Now, from here, just move the block out of your way. And before we hug the knees into the chest, let's take that soles of the feet out, or soles of the feet together rather, and let the knees move out. You can rest your hands on your abdomen here, or maybe take and grab the opposite forearm and reach the arms back, kind of framing the head. We're just really giving ourselves the opportunity here to extend through the spine as we get this nice passive stretch through the inner thighs. Lift the arms back above you so that you can change the crossing of your arms. It might feel a little funky because this will be your non-dominant crossing. The more you start doing yoga, the more you become aware of that, dominant side and less dominant side, even to the point to where I know now if I'm taking steps, I'll try to lead with my non-dominant foot rather than always leading with that dominant foot. So it just becomes this sort of strive for balance. And release the arms. Use your hands to help you bring the legs back in toward one another. And then take the feet wide. But the heels are going to scoot up toward your glutes quite a bit. Arms are out by your sides to help stabilize you. Shoulders, backs of the shoulders remain on the ground. Inhale. Exhale and let the knees like windshield wipers move to your right side. Left shoulder grounded. Inhale back to center. Exhale, knees move to your left side. That right hip is clean off of the ground. Inhale back to center. Exhale, right side with the knees. Inhale back to center. Exhale, left side. Inhale, center. Exhale, right. Now, keep both feet on the ground, or you could take that right foot and kind of cross the outer ankle over the outer edge of that left knee, left thigh area. Maybe even turn your head to look towards your left side, just to remind that left shoulder just stay grounded. And then bring the head back to center, uncrossing the leg if it was crossed, bringing the knees back to center. Make sure the feet are wide. Take the knees to your left side. And then here again, just keep your both feet on the ground, or take that left outer ankle, cross it over the outer edge. And the right knee where it meets the thigh. This is just going to bring more weight and intensity into the stretch. You could turn your head towards your right side, reminding that right shoulder to stay grounded, just relax downward into the earth. One more breath. And bringing your head back to center, uncrossing the leg, bringing your knees back to center. And just like we did before, we could roll to the side and come back up to hands and knees, or we can see about hugging the knees in and rolling up, scooting back and finding that hands and knees positioning. We're actually going to come into our final Tibetan here. And so this one is again, a lot on the wrist. That's the thing about the 5 Tibetans is, you know, if you have any kind of wrist issues and shoulder issues, you really need to be modifying this practice. Don't just throw the practice out. You know, you can still get so much out of it in the modified version because you're still kind of moving and strengthening and stretching the entire body with just these 5 yoga-like exercises, okay? So for you hardcore folks out there, your 5th Tibetan is, you know, you start in downward facing dog, and we're going to move from down dog to up dog without coming onto the tops of the feet. We're going to stay on the balls of the feet, okay? And so this is when the feet kind of stay where they are, the hands sort of stay where they are. We pull that navel in, and then we would inhale and lower the hips, okay? And then we would exhale and lift the hips. So you can see how 7 reps of that could be quite a lot. But if you guys, you know, for those of you that want to practice those full on Tibetans, then that's how you're going to do that more advanced version. Now, the version that I'm going to be demoing tonight that we can use as an option is to hang out in your child's pose. So you would start in child's pose, and notice how my hips reach back as far as they'll go. Now for this, you know, typically I like to have my knees wide in child's pose, but for this child's pose, we are going to need to have the knees stay at hip width distance instead. And then same thing, hands are about shoulder width, and we start here. And then we would just inhale, keep the hands where they are, keep the knees where they are, and it's just a matter of coming onto the hands and the knees. Some of us are going to stop there. All right, some of us might be able to go, you know, a little bit deeper into that upward facing dog. Some of us might be able to really lower the hips, and you can see how even though, you know, I'm in sort of a deep variation of this, all right, I'm not allowing my shoulders to come up by my ears. I'm really pressing out. So if coming here means you have to do this, then maybe come here instead. All right, so just decide what you are going to do. All right, bye Mary, I hope to see you tomorrow night. And just see, hey Lee, thanks for joining. So here we go, either starting in downward facing dog or starting in your child's pose, okay? We're gonna do 7 reps here. So inhale and coming forward into that upward facing dog or knees upward facing dog. Exhale, press back. Keep this going, you guys. Inhale, coming forward, really pressing into the fingers and the thumb pads. And then exhale, pressing back. 5 more. Keep the knees right in line with your hips. Sometimes they'll kind of spread out a little bit. 4 more. Inhale. And exhale, reaching back. Keep that going. 3 more. Really pressing through the fingers, the thumbs. 2 more. Last one, here we go. And pressing back. Do that. Coming into a sitting position, and let's come into our non-dominant crossing, just because we, literally probably spent, months, if not years of our lives in our dominant crossing. So come in your non-dominant crossing. We're just going to stretch the wrists a little bit from all of that work. So I'm just going to take and make a sideways fist with your left hand, and then pull those knuckles in. And then release. And same thing other side. Just make that sideways fist to the right hand. Pull the knuckles in. If you feel a lot of tenderness here, then probably means you're tight through the wrist, tight through also the kind of carpal tunnel area. And so you need to be adding these stretches to their weekly repertoire. Release. And then shake the hands out. Okay. So we're going to do just a little bit with seated folds now that we are back down. We are done with our Tibetans. So if you're looking to start practicing the 5 Tibetans, I've said this before in class, you can Google it. It's all over the internet now. And, Yoga Journal is always a nice, reputable, kind of source if you're looking for one. And basically with the 5 Tibetans, you work your way up to 21 repetitions. And the thing about that is that, how with each repetition that we would do, I'd say, okay, inhale, do this, exhale, do that. One really good indicator if you are working your way towards those 21 repetitions and either the gentle version or the more intense version of these 5 Tibetans, if you have to take a breath in between, and you can't kind of stick with one movement is the inhale, one movement is the exhale, then that means, wherever set that happens in, maybe it happens in the first set, okay? And so that means you just kind of stick with that 7. Once you get to a place to where you can do that 7 without having to take extra breaths in, then you can start moving. That's the indication you can start moving into that second set, okay? And so on into the third set. So just keep that in mind. That's a good way of keeping balance in it. So we're just going to do a few forward folds here. This is where you may or may not need to use your strap. All right. So we're going to extend through the left leg first. Okay. Oh, hey, Christy. Thanks for joining. All right. So if you have issues with locking your knee in forward folds, something you can do, you could take a blanket or rolled up towel and put it under that knee just so that you don't lock it out. It can really cause a lot of damage by doing your folds, whether standing or seated, with a locked knee. So sitting up nice and tall, inhale. Now you might be taking that strap and lassoing your foot in front of you, and that's fine. Or you might have your hands on the ground. Take a big breath in. As the breath goes out, just keep the length in your spine and start to fold over the leg here. Tucking the chin toward your chest so that even the neck is nice and long. Now, just so that we all have something to practice, if you are, and I'll turn to the side to show you guys, if you're pretty flexible in your hamstrings, then you're not going to need a strap, obviously. And say, you're already to the point to where you can pretty easily grab your foot. Well, then you can use your block and kind of flex that foot, put the foot on the block, hold on to the block, and let that, gently bring your torso closer to the leg. So many different expressions of this pose, Janu Sirsasana, one-legged head to knee pose, or head of the knee pose. Wherever you are, let's just take 2 more breaths. And then use your hands either side of that knee to press yourself back upright. I'm just going to switch out. So, or actually, we're going to move this left leg out to the side and switch into our side Janu Sirsasana. So just like before, you might be using the strap around your foot, just holding on to that left hand, okay? Or you might be resting the left hand palm facing up on top of that left leg. Either way, inhale, reach your right arm up, and as you exhale, just start to slide this left hand down the leg toward the foot. Maybe you're holding on to the strap here. Now, for those of you that are going fairly deep into this side stretch, this side fold, and let's say you have your left arm resting on the leg, that's a good indicator that we can go, we can start working our way deeper in by reaching that left arm across the body toward your right knee, trying to bring essentially that left shoulder closer to the leg, and then you might be able to reach and grab hold of the left foot with the right hand, and then grabbing the foot with both hands. Now, anywhere from that expression, which is, you know, a bit more advanced, to right here. Some of us are going to be right here. Either way, it feels really good in opening this right side of the body. We're also getting this big stretch through the left hamstring and the left inner thigh. So one more breath wherever you are. And slowly making your way back upright. Now we're going to change out with the legs. So first, let's come into Dandasana. Legs are together, feet are together. And then we're going to keep this right leg extended. So bringing that left foot to the inner edge of your right thigh. Using your strap around that front foot if you need to. Inhale, sitting up, nice and tall. Exhale, folding over the leg. And, you know, I always kind of say this in class, it's called head of the knee, but don't think about bringing the head down to the knee. Think about reaching your head toward your foot out in front of you. That's going to keep that extension through the spine. Going to keep us moving into a deeper expression of this fold. See if you can reach your sits bones downward toward the ground, increasing that space in the lower back even more. 2 breaths wherever you are. Or you could use your block here. When you're ready, hands are going to be either side of that knee, and we're just going to press ourselves gently up, extending to the spine. Let's take this right leg out to the side. And same thing here, we might use the strap around the foot, maybe, and just holding on with the right hand, reaching that left arm up, and you know, your side bend, that side Janu Sirsasana might look like this tonight. Or we have the right palm of the hand facing up toward the ceiling, left arm reaches up, exhale, we slide that hand down toward the foot. Now again, if you can put your arm, that forearm on the leg, then you're ready to start reaching across the midline of the body toward, in this case, that left knee, and bring that right shoulder closer to your leg. Now, if when you do that, you start turning and facing the ground, well, guess what? You kind of lost, sort of lost the pose. I'm going to keep spiraling this left side of the chest up towards the ceiling. But remember, we might be right here. So wherever you need to be, take 2 more breaths. And then slowly make your way back upright. Your strap out of your way, and then bring the legs back out in front of you to Dandasana. One final fold, we're going to come into our bound angle, so soles of the feet are together. Now, if when you come into this pose, and I'll kind of turn to the side to show you guys what I'm talking about. If coming into this pose, you know, you kind of have this action going on where you're rounding and you have your knees up super high, then that just means, you know, there's some tightness in the hips and in the lower back. And that's a place where a lot of us are tight. And so you could sit on the edge of your block here and let that help you. Or you could sit on, you know, the edge of a blanket or a pillow, whatever you need here. And so see how that makes for a lot more extension through the spine. You can see I'm sitting up nice and tall. So for some of us, that's what we're going to be working on in our Baddha Konasana and our bound angle tonight. Just trying to be here rather than here. Okay, if it takes a block or a pillow to help with that, then doing that. Over time, we learn to master the pose without sitting on anything, and we can still sit up right, and the knees are below hip level. Then and only then is when you can start progressing this pose, moving deeper into this pose by inviting the fold. And so we would just, for those of us folding, we would just kind of lean by reaching out through the chest, tucking the chin slightly so that your neck stays long. You might very gingerly rest the elbows, forearms on the legs. That's okay too. Now here, for those of you that are pretty flexible in the groin and inner thighs and hips and lower back, you're going to be reaching your heart closer and closer toward the inner edges of the feet. Okay, and so that's kind of the direction you're moving in. But again, you know, we might be up here, and that's fine. I think it just helps to know, you know, the direction that you're moving in so that you know what you're working toward. 2 more breaths wherever you are. And then slowly pressing yourself back upright. All right, so let's take our time kind of making our transition into Shavasana. And so I'm going to remain sitting up so that I can kind of talk us through our relaxation. But you go ahead and you know, come into a reclined position. You might have your knees bent, or the soles of the feet on the ground. You might have your legs extended, and if the legs are extended, but you still need a little extra lower back support, one of the things that we can do here is we could have a block, one block under each thigh as the legs are extended in that, you know, reclined position. And so that can feel really nice. But be where you can feel comfortable and relaxed for the next 3 minutes or so. And as always, you know, you can feel free to take, you know, a much longer Shavasana since we're doing this virtually. So just checking in, releasing through the physical body, feeling your points of contact in the back body that are touching the ground, that are touching the earth. So those 3 major areas we have, you know, the back of the skull touching the ground or our pillows. We have the backs of the shoulders resting, supporting us. We have the sacrum also resting on the ground, supporting you. And so as we hang out for a little bit here in this resting awareness, maybe use those 3 areas, the skull, the shoulders, the sacrum, to keep coming back to each time you notice you know, that your mind is distracted or that the mind is wandering. this point, we've allowed the breath to just come back to a natural pattern, to our own rhythm. So we're not controlling it in any way, just letting it happen all on its own. Remember, Shavasana is a pose in yoga that for those of us that are struggling with allowing ourselves to relax, to take a minute, to take a break, or maybe for those of us that are having difficulties sleeping at night, Shavasana is a great pose that you can practice to help you get better sleep, to help you just practice slowing down, letting go. So as we near our ending time, again, you are free to stay in your relaxation pose in Shavasana. If you are going to come back up, or I should say when you do decide to come back up, even if it's well after we've ended our virtual session together, even if it's after that, when you do come up in a really intentional way and find that alignment again, and just check in with yourself one last time. So whether you're sitting back up with me now or in Shavasana, thank you so much for joining. And we'll be doing this every Tuesday on Facebook Live until we're able to meet again, hopefully soon, at the Neva Lomason Library. Thank the Neva Lomason for providing this class for you. They're the ones sponsoring it for this wonderful community. So take care, be safe, and namaste. All right, bye everyone. See you next Tuesday.